Before we got to the story, I plan to give away 100 USD to whoever has the best opinion regarding this matter. So stay tuned, and I'll announce the winner in the few next videos. You only have to post your opinion on the comment below and consider to like and subscribe so that you'll not miss the announcement and many other future giveaway. Thanks, and back to the story. Am I the wrong one for refusing to help my parents with their mental health issues after they dismissed mine for years? I, 29F, grew up in a household where mental health is taboo. My parents, both successful business executives, believed that mental illness was a sign of weakness or a lack of willpower. They subscribed to the pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality and viewed therapy and medication as crutches for the weak-minded. From a young age, I struggled with what I now know was severe anxiety and depression. I'd have panic attacks before school, spending mornings crying and hyperventilating in my room. At night, I'd lie awake for hours, my mind racing with worries and dark thoughts. I started self-harming at 14, hiding the cuts and bruises under long sleeves and baggy clothes. Whenever I tried to talk to my parents about how I was feeling, they'd dismiss it. Everyone gets sad sometimes, they'd say. Or, you just need to toughen up. My mom would tell me to smile more, and my dad would insist that I just needed more exercise or a hobby. As my mental health deteriorated, so did my grades and social life. I went from being a straight-A student to barely passing. I withdrew from friends and quit all my extracurricular activities. My parents' response was to ground me and take away my distractions, phone, computer, books, insisting that I just needed to focus more on my studies. The breaking point came during my junior year of high school. I had a complete breakdown in the middle of a class, sobbing uncontrollably and unable to breathe. A school counselor called my parents, recommending that I see a therapist. To my shock and horror, my parents refused, telling the counselor that I was just being dramatic for attention. That night, I overheard them talking. "We can't let her see a shrink." My dad said, "What will people think? It'll ruin our reputation. She just needs to snap out of it." Something in me snapped that day. I realized that if I wanted help, I'd have to get it myself. I started researching mental health online, using school computers since I didn't have access at home. I found online support groups and resources for teens with mental health issues. Through these groups, I learned about a local youth mental health clinic that offered free, confidential counseling to teens. I started sneaking out to attend therapy sessions, telling my parents I was staying late at school for study groups. The therapy was life-changing. For the first time, I felt heard and understood. My therapist helped me develop coping strategies for my anxiety and depression. She also helped me understand that what I was experiencing was a real illness, not a personal failing. As I improved, I became passionate about psychology and mental health advocacy. I joined a peer support group at school and started a mental health awareness club. My parents, noticing my improved mood and grades, attributed it to me finally growing up and getting serious about life. When it came time for college, I chose to major in psychology, telling my parents it was because I wanted to go into HR or organizational behavior. They weren't thrilled, but accepted it as a practical enough field. I worked part-time and took out loans to pay for my education, determined to be financially independent. Throughout college and grad school, I maintained minimal contact with my parents. I'd visit on holidays and major occasions, but kept our interactions surface level. They never knew about my ongoing therapy or the medication that helped stabilize my mood. To them, I was finally the normal, successful daughter they'd always wanted. After completing my PhD in clinical psychology, I opened my own practice specializing in adolescent mental health. I also became involved in mental health advocacy, giving talks at schools and community centers about the importance of early intervention and treatment. My work gained some local media attention, and I was featured in a newspaper article about young professionals making a difference in mental health care. The article mentioned my personal struggle with anxiety and depression as a teen and how it inspired my career choice. 2 days after the article was published, I received a call from my mother. She was hysterical, alternating between anger and tears. "How could you air our dirty laundry like this?" she demanded. "You know how this makes us look." I was stunned. After all these years, their primary concern was still their image, not my well-being. I calmly told her that my story was mine to tell, and that I hoped it would help other young people seek the help they need. I then hung up, feeling a mix of anger, sadness, and relief. A week later, I received a lengthy email from my father. The tone was different from my mother's call. He expressed regret for not recognizing my struggles earlier and admitted that they had handled the situation poorly. He said that reading about my experiences had made them realize they might have their own unaddressed mental health issues. The email concluded with a request. My parents wanted to come see me, not just for a visit, but as patients. They asked if I would be willing to counsel them or refer them to a colleague. They said they were ready to confront their own demons and wanted to make amends for the past. I was conflicted. On one hand, I became a psychologist to help people like my teenage self, people struggling with mental health issues who didn't know where to turn. Wasn't this an opportunity to finally help my parents understand what I went through? To heal our relationship? On the other hand, the idea of counseling my own parents felt inappropriate and potentially traumatizing. Despite years of therapy and professional training, I wasn't sure I could separate my personal feelings from my professional role in this situation. Plus, part of me was still angry. Where was this openness to mental health treatment when I was suffering as a teenager? I decided to refer them to a colleague who specializes in family therapy and older adult mental health. I provided them with some resources and information, but made it clear that I couldn't be directly involved in their treatment. My parents were upset by my decision. My mother accused me of being unforgiving and holding grudges. My father said he was disappointed that I wouldn't help my own family when they were finally reaching out. Their reaction made me question my decision. As a mental health professional, shouldn't I be more understanding and willing to help? Am I letting my personal feelings interfere with my professional ethic? Or am I right to maintain boundaries with people who dismissed and minimized my own mental health for years? So Reddit, AITA for refusing to help my parents with their mental health issues after they dismissed mine for years. 1 year later, wow, I'm overwhelmed by the response to my original post. Thank you all for your support, insights, and sharing your own experiences. Your comments gave me a lot to think about and helped me navigate a complex situation. I wanted to provide an update on what's happened since then. After much reflection and discussion with my own therapist, I stood firm in my decision not to personally counsel my parents. However, I did agree to have a facilitated conversation with them, mediated by a family therapist colleague. That first session was intense and emotional. My parents started by apologizing for dismissing my mental health struggles. They admitted that their own upbringings had ingrained in them a stigma against mental illness, which they now recognized was harmful. I was finally able to express the pain and isolation I felt growing up. I described in detail the panic attacks, the self-harm, the nights spent contemplating suicide, all while feeling like I couldn't turn to them for help. It was cathartic to voice these experiences without fear of dismissal or judgment. To their credit, my parents listened. For the first time, I saw genuine shock and remorse in their eyes. My mother broke down crying, saying she had no idea how much I had been suffering. My father, usually stoic, was visibly shaken. They shared more about their own backgrounds. Both had grown up in families where mental health was never discussed. My father revealed that his own father had struggled with undiagnosed depression, self-medicating with alcohol. My mother spoke about the intense pressure she faced to always appear perfect and put together. This context didn't excuse their behavior, but it helped me understand it better. I realized that they weren't necessarily cruel, but rather ill-equipped to handle mental health issues due to their own unresolved traumas and societal conditioning. After that initial session, my parents committed to individual and couples therapy. They've been seeing a therapist regularly for the past year, working through their own issues and learning about mental health. The change in them has been remarkable. They've become advocates for mental health awareness in their own circle, challenging the stigma among their peers. My mother even organized a mental health awareness event at her company. As for our relationship, We're slowly rebuilding it on healthier terms. We have monthly family therapy sessions where we continue to work through our past issues and establish better communication patterns. It's not always easy. There are still moments of tension and old habits sometimes resurface. But we're all committed to the process. One of the most healing moments came when my parents attended one of my talks on youth mental health. Seeing them in the audience, actively listening and taking notes was incredibly powerful. Afterwards, my father hugged me and said, "I'm so proud of you, and I'm sorry it took me so long to understand." This experience has profoundly impacted my professional work as well. I've developed a new program at my practice focused on helping families navigate mental health issues across generations. We work with parents and children together, breaking down communication barriers and addressing inherited traumas. I've also started a support group for mental health professionals who have their own history of mental illness or family mental health struggles. It's been incredibly rewarding to create a space where we can discuss the unique challenges of this intersection of personal and professional experiences. My research has shifted focus too. I'm now studying the impact of parental mental health attitudes on children's willingness to seek help. I hope this work will contribute to earlier interventions and better family support systems. Personally, I've had to confront my own lingering resentments and fears. It's been challenging to open myself up to my parents again, to allow myself to be vulnerable with them. But it's also been incredibly healing. I'm learning that forgiveness is a process, not a one-time event. I've also had to navigate some tricky ethical waters. As my parents have become more open about their mental health journey, they've expressed interest in participating in my research or speaking at events. While I appreciate their enthusiasm, I've had to establish clear boundaries to maintain professional integrity. To those who might be in similar situations, I want to say this: healing is possible, but it's okay if it takes time. It's okay to maintain boundaries, even as you work towards reconciliation. Your feelings are valid, and you're not obligated to be anyone's therapist, even if you are a mental health professional. I'm grateful for how things have turned out, but I don't regret my initial decision to maintain professional boundaries with my parents. That boundary allowed us to start healing our relationship as family members, not as therapists and patients. Thank you again, Reddit, for your support during a crucial moment in my life. Your perspectives helped me navigate a complex situation and ultimately led to healing I hadn't thought possible. While our journey is far from over, I'm cautiously optimistic about the future of my relationship with my parents and the positive impact our story might have on others facing similar struggle.